everybody? It's Anthony Bowling in the Anthony Bowling Group, and another episode of Chasing Gazillions. Ain't the same as making millions. Hanging out with the Anthony Bowling Group, real estate professionals here, bringing you information that's relevant to you in your life here in the Washington, D.C. area, all things real estate and important to you and your family. We have an exciting program here tonight for you. We have the opportunity to a special guest host that we're going to be bringing to you, Reverend Dr. Kendrick Curry, the senior pastor from the Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist Church here in Southeast Washington, D.C. in Ward 7, has graciously offered to come on to Chasing Gazillions and to spend some time with you, again, asking questions, talking to you about what's important here. You saw the topic. I know you're excited for it because I see the people already. I see that the chat box is already lighting up because you want to know about the state of Ward 7 and what the future looks like. And so we have brought together two individuals who are going to have this open discussion. As always, it's live and it's unscripted. And so I don't know what to expect, right? But what I do know is that you're going to get meaningful information that's important to you, and you should stay tuned. So we also are joined, as you can see, by the next Ward 7 Council member, candidate Villareal VJ Johnson. He's here, who is going to be fielding questions and be a part of this discussion. And I'm going to step out of the way. But before I do that, let me bring Pastor Curry over and allow him the opportunity to introduce himself to our audience. Welcome to Chasing Gazillions, not the same as making millions. That's Curry.
Oh, not the same as making millions, chasing gazillions. I really like that. You have to add a few more zeros to get some gazillions on here. But it's great and wonderful to be on the show. I'm indeed grateful, and I just look forward to the conversation. It's one that needs to be held. The state of Ward 7, what's in its future? We have a lot to talk about. So I'm just ready to jump right in whenever you all are.
Fantastic. Well, before we jump right in, we want to bring over Villareal VJ Johnson, candidate for the Ward 7 Council position here. Again, we always appreciate your insights and thank you for making yourself available. Tell us about the campaign. Give us briefly what's been going on, and then we're going to jump right into this discussion because everyone wants to hear what's on the mind of Reverend Dr. Pastor Curry.
I'll be brief as I can be. We stepped into this campaign January 12th, so maybe 5 months in, and it's a lot to talk about. But God willing, if I can summarize it, is that people are wrestling with a choice. They have a lot of options, and it's been information overload for them. And they are not secure in the decision. So if we can do what we can do by making it a clearer choice, an easier choice, we do that. And what we ask them is, what do you want, not just right now, but tomorrow? And when you start asking people about tomorrow, that's when it gets difficult. But when you ask people what they want right now, they'll say something, and they'll say something streets, they'll say something crime, they'll say something restaurants, they'll say a number of things. But what we have learned throughout this campaign is that people are looking for value. It is disguised as being heard, but what they're really looking for is value. Do you value me? Will you value me? And will you get the city to value us? And those things look differently for a bunch of different people. But at the end of the day, we live in a ward that historically has been devalued, uh, divested in, and neglected. And people are sick and tired of being sick and tired.
There you go. Exactly. Well, with that as our backdrop, gentlemen, we are here. It's I got the clock here. We're on the clock. Professor Carey, I'm gonna bring you over here to the main screen.
That's fine.
There you go. You're like
right.
that, and VJ's up there, and Professor Carey, you're the host. We're gonna let you go with it.
Yeah. Well. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to start out by understanding, having a couple of things understood. We got a lot at stake here in the Ward 7 race, and I've known VJ for at least 20 years. It's going probably longer than that, and met him when I first got here. He's been a member of our church for that long, and we've been through many seasons together. And I know he cares about the community. I know he also really wants to make change, make things happen, and witness transformation, if you will, of Ward 7. So I want to, really go at it and shoot some questions. One of the things that just reminded me of how important public safety is when I heard some gunshots last night, and it made me wonder about, the intricate details with regard to just it's not just crime, right? That's sort of one big title that we use for everything. But if you could, VJ, break down what needs to happen so that we can begin to fix the crime problem. How do we handle guns? How does that line up with the Secure DC bill? How does that line up with whatever some folk might want to talk about it, putting more police on the streets? How does all of that sort of come together and look at an integrated whole so we have a real solution?
Yeah, I just left a youth-centered, youth-driven forum at Zion Baptist in Eastland Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And I took some smoke from some young people because I highlighted a couple of things. One, I highlighted that our caregivers, adults, they also have to do better, right? I wanted to leave with those who have the resources and the responsibility and the obligation to protect children. But where the smoke came from is that I also said that young people have a responsibility and the obligation to release their petty, right? I also said that they have a responsibility, especially at the high school level, of being having personal responsibility and individual accountability to themselves and their peer group. And I said, what you cannot control is your parents' behavior, whether it's real or perceived, bad or good. But what you can do is make choices, better choices, that's going to put you in a better position than when you are right now. And we talked about guns, and I was honest with them, and I laid out there what my juvenile record looked like and what my life looked like at their age. And I also told them that I am a believer of guns. I am CCW. I am trained. My father was military police. My stepfather was MPD. I'm not afraid of guns. I understand guns. And what I told them is, like, the issue of guns in the District of Columbia is not DC's fault, because DC is a federal territory surrounded by gun supportive states, Maryland, Virginia, and DC. And one of the young people, they shot at me, man. They gave me a lot of smoke. Because I told them, I said, look, let's stop pretending like DC doesn't make guns illegal, right? When I was young, guns were illegal. You would get 5 years a bullet. You would get 10 years mandatory for even being in possession of guns. And I told them right now, I said, look, you can go right out to Marlboro Pike 10 minutes from here and go buy you an illegal gun, a legal gun. You can go out to Dulles and buy you a legal gun in the parking lot. You can go to Chopper City and get you an illegal gun right now, right off Good Hope Road. And the young people's like, you can't be telling us where to go buy guns. I said, you already know. I'm not telling you what you don't know. You know your peers have illegal guns. You know your peers are bringing guns to school, but you're not saying nothing about it because you don't want to be a snitch. But when someone gets shot, you want to blame everybody else. Okay, cool. It is what it is. Well, why are you telling us where to get guns from? And I'm saying Chopper City was the place that I went to when I was your age, and that was 30 years ago. So if a community named after its bad behavior still exists, what are we talking about here? DC has the most strict gun laws of all jurisdictions across the country, and we still struggle with guns. And I said, well, leadership got to do more, right? Leadership has to fight to punish and have stricter penalties and consequences on people who get caught with guns, so they will know that I don't want to get caught with a gun, and eventually I will get caught with a gun, so it's best for me not to have a gun.
Sure. So I like that, and I'm gonna tell you why. I'm a native Texan. Everybody I know got a gun, right? I don't keep them here. I got a lot of hunting and all of that down, but we started with BB guns to pellet guns to 410 gauge on, right? And I used to joke with my mother before she deceased that she shot better than I did.
Ooh.
So her, my father, myself, we all shot. So here's one thing. I understand it's not the gun that's the problem, right? It's the person that has the gun in the hand and the intent that they're going to use it for. But here's one thing I want to push, right? Since you can't legislate morality, how are you going to begin as a council member to push this issue of public safety?
Yeah,
because you can't do nothing about morality.
You can't legislate. That's what the churches are for, and I'm glad you're here. Because in this campaign process, I have led with my faith, and I have went to pastors. I've went to churches. Bolin called me. Bolin, like, why are you talking to the pastors like that? I said, because biblically I can. The scriptures empower me to do so. And we have an obligation. We have a moral obligation as practices of the Christian faith, as followers of Jesus, to do right when we see wrong. Now, here's the unique thing about me as the council member that you won't get from anyone else, is that I have the courage to have the tough conversations when nobody wants to have the tough conversations. And I was at a forum and I watched some of the candidates talk about cooperation and consensus and getting along to go along, because they were believing that that's how you get stuff done. And I said, that has never been how stuff gets done in the country we live in. The country we live in is about compromise and conflict, and it's not a negative thing. So if I can speak by using the power and authority and influence of the seat to change the way we think about the way we make decisions, then I have a moral obligation to do that, right? Now, we know last week the Post broke an article out talking about MPD, and police officers in MPD were releasing guns back into the street and making money. Every last one of those people need to go to jail. They need to go under the jail. We need to not have a culture where the police think it's okay to profit off of the pain and suffering of people, right? But if the mayor doesn't want to come out and talk about that, if the police chief don't want to come out and talk about that, if the union don't want to come out and talk about that, then I, as a leader representing Ward 7, I have to get as many people as possible and talk about it and say, yeah, no, this is unacceptable, right? Because how do you set examples for young people that this is right and this is wrong when they see adults in authority practicing bad behavior?
Sure.
And so
I think you're absolutely right. When you see adults have to be held accountable and in all situations. So that part is very clear. I think you do have some need to have some conversation around what adults are doing and what we need to make sure that they don't do, right? So we have good model behavior instead of otherwise. I know we could deal with public safety all night, but I do want to jump in even right now and talk to you about what are we going to do with this deficit, and how do we start to deal with some of the pressing problems that we have in our own community when folk are really in need of some serious economic justice, right? We need to increase the minimum wage in DC. It's lagging, it's been lagging for years, for example, but yet we're gonna have a budget shortfall, right? How does all of this work together, and you as a council member begin to help us understand that some tough times are coming, but there's a plan that can be put in place that's going to help those? Because, and the reason I raise this is we may claim that 19-20% are below the poverty line, but we know unemployment and underemployment in some of the neighborhoods and those poverty within in our blocks. If blocks make up neighborhoods and neighborhoods make up community, it's much worse than these aggregate numbers folk use. I'm just really trying to find out what we gonna do, bro.
Well, like I told the young people a few moments ago, when your mama or your daddy or your grandparents choose not to get you the latest Jordan 11s,
Sure.
and you show up with an iPad, that is a economic responsible decision, because what they're doing is investing in your ability to access information so you can grow and learn and thrive as an adult. And they're asking you to make a sacrifice on style and coolness and popularity. Okay, you may have to go to school with these type of shoes so you can have this MacBook Pro, so you can get your studies on. And so that's a micro. But when you look at the macro, and the work that I've been able to do in Ward 7 over the past years with the investment in the main streets, let's talk about it. Where I sit as the president of the Hillcrest Community Civic Association, I also sit on the Hillcrest Community Foundation, which is called the Washington East Foundation, that residents of Ward 7, Penn Branch, Hillcrest, and communities alike say, hey, we're going to enter into a relationship with the government, and we're going to extract resources, and we're going to redirect those resources as we see fit at the neighborhood level. And that's how we got the first Main Street in Ward 7 in Deanwood. And the neighbors south of Massachusetts Avenue and the Pennsylvania Avenue corridor decided to invest in Deanwood. We just got the Pennsylvania Avenue Main Street 2 years ago. They could have invested in their own community first, but in 2009, they chose to invest in Deanwood.
In Deanwood, right.
To redirect resources to the brick and mortar establishments along Nellie Helen Burroughs Avenue, 49th Division Avenue. Now, what does that do? Investing in brick and mortar businesses in our neighborhoods allows for those mom and pop shop to operate their businesses better and hire neighbors from the surrounding community. I talk about the 2900 block of Minnesota Avenue all the time because I had direct impact on that as an ANC commissioner many, many years ago. And I highlight that as an opportunity of what we can do at the neighborhood level, because what people don't understand about the 2900 block of Minnesota Avenue, other than they hate the traffic pattern now because of what D-Dot did, is that that is a commercial corridor that's all Black, all minority, all women. When you go to the 2900 block of Minnesota Avenue, you see us, you see women, you see minorities operating a seafood restaurant, operating a nail salon, operating a barbershop. Right? You see that, a t-shirt business, a hair braiding business, right? And I don't take that lightly. I think that is a foundation to what we can do in all 10 and all other corridors. And I think we have 10 commercial corridors in Ward 7 that can be parsed out and developed, just like we did at 2900 block of Minnesota Avenue. Now, how did we do that? We did that with COVID relief funds. We did that with monies from community block grants, with Great Street money, with Main Street money. We did facade improvements, right? If you go down there and you look, it is the most uniform development in Ward 7. The signages are exactly the same. The lighting is exactly, you go down there, it is safe and secure. It is clean. The security gates, right, are uniform. The building has been power and pressure washed. And you see a different attitude and a different feeling down there. Now, that took 15 years to do. It wasn't overnight. Right. But again, what I'm saying, my difference as a council member is that I know these things, right, because I was raised by the leaders before me who also knew these things, who were born out of a generation who understood what things were, what was at stake. There's two things at stake. The Jim Crow blacks understood political power. We have political power in Ward 7. We elected 2 mayors, okay, within the modern era. Tony Williams and Vincent Gray, right? Now, what we also know, right, is economic power. What we have also done in the Hillcrest community, and I get to put the icing on the cake. I don't get to take credit for all of it, but I get to point out the parts that I participated in, and now I get to put the icing on the cake. I got notice today that the groundbreaking for the 126 townhomes and the 75 units of senior housing will be June 20th. I also got to participate in the fight with the city and the CFO to release the resources to start the final phase of the project, right?
What project are you talking about, and where is this unit? These units?
So this is the Skyland Town Center.
Okay, I know, but I want to make sure.
So when those of us who lived here, I used to go up there and get my grandma's medicine from the CVS. There used to be an auto parts store. There used to be a KFC there. Used to be a discount mart, right? So I grew up in that, right? And the Sears was across the street in the Good Hope Marketplace. And so, Rev, when you came, that was the conversation. We need to do more about this. And what people think it was about capturing the $300 million of seepage that our community was wasting, shopping outside of itself. But the reality is it was an approach to reducing crime in that area.
True.
Right? And now it is the only area in the city that has the only drive-through Starbucks in all of the District of Columbia, which is a sign that we in Ward 7 can have more of the things that we want and need. But we have to have the aggregate of committed community folk that understands the right strategic and corporate partners and the government to do for us, right? And that's what you get from me as a council member. And that's what we can emulate. And that's the model we can take to Fletcher Johnson. That's the model we can take to Capitol Gateway. That's the model we can take to Deanwood. I mean, look, we watched Benco get sold a couple times. We watched East River Park get sold a couple times. We watched Cedar Realty buy downtown Ward 7. And as a council member, you have somebody that knows to interject the right ideas in the conversation to redirect the intention and the resources to do more for us.
So just right quick, can you one thing I have not heard anybody really talk about is the environment too much in this campaign. And we sit on a very toxic we're in a toxic location, right? One of the things that we can talk about is kids not going to school, and one of the major health reasons is due to asthma, because we sit in an area where literally we have a bunch of smog and horrible health conditions, air and indeed water. If you look at some of the tributaries and what have you, what we gonna do about that particular problem, which contributes to cancer and asthma and other sorts of things?
The environment is not, it wasn't my awareness. It wasn't my forte. But let me tell you, Pastor Curry, Joseph Glover, who used to be a member of our church, who passed.
Old Branch Park. Yes, he did. Yes.
him, Dolly Davis, Irv Chef. When I was a commissioner, they all grabbed me in and they took me to these meetings that happen right at the Bladensburg Marina, where there's a whole host of environmental activists. When I was at the events DC, there was a whole host of environment activists that surrounded me about disrupting the parking lot at RFK to build the Fields project. Look, we don't know that as a community, and there are people in our community that do know, like a Dennis Chestnut or a host of other people that Black pioneers in the space of environmental justice and advocacy. Again, it's another point where I, as the council member, can say this is important. Why aren't we paying attention to this? And what more can we do to grow in an environmental justice advocacy support system that we are training Black and brown folks and young folks, right? There was a guy, I think David Smith, used to do a lot of work with ECC, and he used to give the boys jobs cleaning up the Anacostia River when Tony Williams used to invest in that. I mean, the goal was for us to swim in the Anacostia River last July. You know, I was signed up to jump in the water just because I thought that was the right thing to do. And I'm down there with the homeboys catching catfish, right? Using all kind of creative baits to get the catfish. We eat the catfish. I get it. They cook it right underneath the bridge after they catch it. But we don't know enough about the environment as a community, and partly because that's a luxury advocacy issue. You need time. I mean, if I can't get my kid to school because I'm working 2 jobs and I got to take Metro, I don't have time, Rev, to go up to Bladensburg to learn about the environmental issues.
And I get it. I really do. But I push back a little bit on that, because when we start to deal with power lines, when we start to deal with some of these other things that create the cancers in our body, you know, we got to live. We have the highest incidences of cancer mortality in our ward. We have the highest incidences of kidney disease in our ward. We have all of these particular challenges that we're faced with, so that health as well as environment, and a lot of them are coupled. That's really where I was going. We have so many confounding coupled issues that it's going to take somebody that understands. As a council member, it takes somebody that understands how we pull this apart and start to address the issues as best we can separately, and then deal with the interactions between the two.
I'll give you 2 examples. One that you're familiar with, and one that we learned on the campaign. My chair, we was riding through Hill East. It was like, man, how are we going to put these signs up? Because in Ward 7, we can nail the signs to the telephone pole. But in Hill East along 19th Street, 16th Street,
right.
We have to have a different apparatus to put the signs on the poles, because we have to use ties, because they don't have the wooden telephone poles. Now, that's environmental racism. That was by design, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, so they got metal poles because their wires are inside the pole under the ground. We have telephone wooden poles because our wires are hanging alongside.
Side the road, yeah.
Because we had to raise money because someone had a great idea of celebrating our corridor with Christmas lights.
Yep.
People didn't even know we don't have electricity on our we can't even power up in our community to light lights along Pennsylvania Avenue because they didn't wire our telephone poles to have light sockets to run lights like
our light poles. Yeah, I get it.
Like, so you go to City Center, you go to Georgetown, you're like, oh, you go to Arlington. You're like, why? Wow, they got Christmas lights and it's festive and it's joyous. And look, you're like, hey man, we don't have power in our lights, right? So the level of environmental racism and injustice that occurs, we don't even think about as a community because we don't even have the luxury of time to think about that, because we want to do minimum wage jobs and still not making rent.
And that's the economic justice part. Minimum wage job can't get it done. You know, there's a question in the chat that says, look, what happened to the debate with the area, believe it's Pepco, across from the Whitlock Bridge, where it said it was an environmental hazard. What's happening with that?
So that was bought, so the Pepco plant, all right, so George Gurley, another Black pioneer of environmental justice who grew out of River Terrace, led the River Terrace community to fight against Pepco, because you're talking about all that hazard and that smoke. River Terrace kids were suffering. The people over there was experiencing more asthma, more cancer, and this pioneer, who, rest his soul, fought against the global giant, right? Like, he fought against energy, and he won. And now a company bought the Pepco site last December, maybe November. And so the amount of remediation that has to go on that site requires federal funding.
Sure does.
Do it if they wanted to, because the amount of remediation, yeah. Fletcher Johnson, $42 million is allocated to destroy and remediate that land. That's not build, that's destroy and remediation. So we need federal cooperation and federal funding and a different level of strategic partnership to clean up these areas. Kenilworth Gardens, over there where that fields, if you go back behind Anacostia where the tennis courts are, you have nothing but green space, right? But that is under there 3-4 feet. It's toxic.
There you go.
Right?
So, you're absolutely right. But, it's interesting we can get that done in smaller areas, but nevertheless, we can get it done in like up on Pennsylvania Avenue, somewhere around, 10th Street. There used to be a gas station, and now it's a what? It's condos, townhomes, what have you, and row homes. And when you begin to look at that, you wonder, well, why is it happening there versus as opposed the cleanup? Because as a chemical engineer, I fully understand how this needs to happen in terms of a cleanup of when you've had gas tanks in the ground and what have you, and now you're going to build housing over it.
That's right. Gentlemen, let me jump right in here.
Again,
it's been a fantastic discussion so far, and we have as much time as you gentlemen have remaining. I want to bring in a couple things. I take this privilege again, everybody. It's another episode of Chasing Gazillions, not the same as Making Millions.
I feel like a commercial.
Anthony Bowling Group, local real estate professional, providing you with services, residential, commercial, buy, sell, lease real estate. As you can see, we have persons who are chiming in on the chats. Feel free to come in your chat. We're gonna bring those questions in as appropriate, and we just want to be mindful of everybody's time here. We're at the bottom of the hour. We're on our way up, and please continue. Let's continue with the conversation. I'm gonna step back out. I'm monitoring it, and as we get more questions come in the chat, I'll bring them over, and feel free to incorporate them into the conversation.
We will. We don't mind doing that. I'm not sure what this other one is, but I think it's very important in terms of. I like it to be clarified a little bit. It's a community was concerned to call it a Superfund site, and that is, I guess it's talking about this environmental hazard site because developers won't touch the area, and we need to really talk about, when folk care about something, and I'm talking about when big business cares about something, they have a way of getting things done. And it's not always the best way for our community. What can you tell me that's good about you that you will fight to make sure that, like you mentioned, Mr. Gurley, rest his soul, that fought energy, Pepco, and won. What makes you strong enough to slew the giant Goliath?
Well, that's tied to my faith. I just believe I can, right? Because not to be Bible bashing, Bible beating
thumper,
here. A Bible thumper, not being a Bible thumper. I just buy into the scripture that said I can. because Christ will allow me to do what's right, right? The Spirit of God is in me, and it empowers me to do the right thing. So it's nothing about me. But I know I am courageous, and being courageous is not the same as being fearless. I believe that the courage to overcome obstacles will be rewarded with an outcome that is beneficial to everybody. I don't mind speaking truth to power because the truth is the only thing that sets us free. And yeah, the culture we live in, it does work against us when we do the things that work against it. But you know, it's who you're going to be known as, how you're going to live your life if you don't speak up for the right things that need to be done. Business has the power to do whatever it wants to do. We watch business hold the city at hostage. We watch business get $515 million to invest in itself downtown, while we, Ward 7, have to participate in a shared sacrifice. And it took us 20 years, 25 years to get one almost complete transformative development. And we see in 6 months that business made the city give it $515 million. We don't laugh at business. We don't underestimate the power of business, but we have to control it. And the only thing that's more controlling than big business is the people who choose to spend their dollars with or without business. And that's the second component of what we need to focus on as Ward 7 residents. We understand the political power because we have elected 2 mayors. Now we got to follow our dollars with that. We have to put our dollars in places that will treat us fairly, that will respect us and honor us. And that's what we need to do. And as a council member, that's the messaging that makes me different from everybody else. I have the courage to do it.
It looks like we lost the path. Oh, he's back. He's back. Oh, I love it. Okay.
I'm right here.
Yeah. So courage is what is necessary for effective, impactful leadership. And you know, I listen to those candidates in the forum talk about being liked is more important than being effective or impactful, and I just disagree with them. I think being respected is more important than being liked. And when we started this campaign, when we thought about it, man, I prayed hard about it. I knew what the challenges was that I was facing with likability and some of the past mistakes I've made. But I understood that people really do like me. They like me because I know how to get the job done. They like me because I have been consistent at making government work for Ward 7. And I have the most experience at making government work for Ward 7. And I have all the relationships and the respect. And people may not, quote unquote, like me, but they respect me because they know I lead with a level of integrity. I lead with the collective community good. And they know that I'm always going to land on the right side of people, even to my own detriment and my own sacrifice.
You know, one of the things that a council member must be, at least in my mind, when they're serious, is you must be a good problem solver, right? You must also be a good leader, and you must be a good negotiator. Yeah. So when I say negotiator, I mean understanding that the council member from Ward 7 will be a junior council member, and you're going to have to horse trade with other council members to make sure that some of the things get across that you're very much interested in terms of building a ward. In terms of making sure that happens, what would you do to be a leader, to have perhaps learn to build a good team around you, right? And share a little bit about your inside baseball with regard to that.
That is inside baseball. You know, on this campaign trail, man, we only got 60, 92 minutes to talk about it. You really can't talk about inside of baseball, right? And it's almost frowned upon from insiders to talk about inside baseball. But I think the voters need to understand how you make government work for them. I think the only one that has been articulating inside baseball, and I first did it on a podcast for the Ward 7 Education Council with Dr. Maladine when I talked about the inner workings of the city council. Now, Rev, you can't begin you cannot begin a negotiation without good faith and leverage. Now, Councilmember Gray has leverage, right? Marion Barry had leverage, right? These are great council members that came into the spaces with leverage. They had knowledge, they had experience, they had relationship, but they all had people, and they could organize and mobilize people to write letters, make calls, and show up and testify. Now, when I go to the council, the rest of those council members know I'm coming with leverage. They know I'm coming to negotiate in good faith, and they know I'm not going to play with them. Everybody knows that, right? It is something that we had to work on to be palatable. It's something that we had to work on to make people feel comfortable with the level of directness and power and impact that I bring to a situation, and the passion. What I bring to this situation is people, the right people, because people know when I call, they answer the phone. I don't need appointments to walk into council member's office right now as a community man, because I've developed relationships over time, helping all of them downtown get their stuff across, even the agency leaders. So this is what I do as in my first 2 years of my 4 years in the first council period, is basically trade off my participation in committees. I have 5 committees to participate in, and I don't know how much of the luxury I get to choose where I want to go, or the chairman will assign me where I want to go. But what I do know by working in the city council is that if you, council member for ward such and such, want your bill to make it to the committee of the whole, then I need you to give me something and I'll let your bill go. Because one of the strategies that I'm going downtown with is that I'm going to be the final vote. I'm going to be the middle of the road person that's going to sway the legislation in committee up or down. That's my strategy. That's my approach. Advocacy Day last week with the Coalition for Nonprofit Housing and Economic Development was 2 weeks ago, 2 Fridays ago. And we met with all the different council members. I went straight to Ward 3, right? I went with the Coalition to Ward 3 to talk to Matthew Fruman. And we was talking about the Greater Washington article that came out April 2024 that said Ward 3 does not own its fair share of providing affordable housing, right? And they had all the excuses. Land acquisition is too much. The space is not available. But more importantly, what Matthew kept saying was, oh, I got to check with my constituency. Well, the fact of the matter is Ward 3 hasn't owned its fair share or equitable share. We, Ward 7, have 220% of the affordable housing goal, where Ward 3 only has 10%. They haven't met their goal. They haven't met their obligation. But here it is in Ward 7, we have 220% exceeded our goal, right? So when you in the council, you got to have these tough conversations. You have to be skilled in crucial conversations. And if I got to go in people's backyard to have conversations with their stakeholders to advance the cause for Ward 7, I will, right? We can no longer allow Ward 7 to be the dumping ground for everything that does not bring prosperity and enhance quality of life to our people. We just can't tolerate that anymore.
Well, that's without question. And there are more dumping grounds than we can even begin to imagine. I'm gonna raise another matter that is larger than folk think that we need to deal with, because it comes right through our ward. And the church knows, some churches know about it, others may not, but it deals with the matter of human trafficking, right? We have folk that are being set up to be trafficked. We have it on one hand, it's as prevalent as scamming seniors, but I really want you to think through and just tell me about what can we do, or what are your thoughts around how we begin to curb the tide of human trafficking? These are human beings, right?
Well,
Babies,
let's call it
oftentimes.
Slavery. It's slavery. That's all it is. It's slavery.
That's what it is. That's
We
exactly
say
what it is.
trafficking so we can think differently about it, so we can detach
Sure.
ourselves
It's
from
slavery.
it. It's slavery. Let's call it what it is. It's slavery. I don't know, Rev. I don't know. And like I was talking to young people earlier today, you know, they say, how can you protect us as the council member if the police came? And I just empathetically looked at them and like, you're absolutely right. I cannot. I cannot. But let me tell you what I did as a father. Let me tell you what I do with my 9-year-old son. The other day, I had VJ walk to the barbershop. I live in Hillcrest on Alabama Avenue. He goes to Lee's Barbershop, which is in relationship to one of my neighbors. One of the owners, the owner of Lee's Barbershop is in relationship with one of my neighbors. I had VJ walk to Lee's Barbershop with his cell phone, right?
That's a good ways.
It's 1.5 miles, right?
Right.
Well, and I walked that walk with some of my neighbors in the morning, some of my seniors, 72, 74, 75 years old, who do that walk in the morning, right? Round trip, 3.5 miles, 4 miles, okay? And so I had to train him, hey, VJ, I'm not going to be the parent that's going to be your Uber driver, because
No, that's
I
right.
need you to understand how to navigate your environment. I need you to understand the signs and symbols of our community. I need you to look at the intersections and become familiar with the things that you recognize, because I'm giving him the skill. A lot of folks probably get snatched up because they don't know where they are. They don't know their environments, right?
Yeah, you look like you don't belong.
You look like you're on the block. So I got my kid walking down the street. He got his phone on speakerphone in his pocket. I'm with him the whole time. He don't know I'm behind him, though.
Yeah.
But I'm giving him the confidence that, oh, I can do this. My daddy on the phone, got the tracker on the phone. I called ahead to Lee and say, my son is coming down there. I called his barber, Aaron. It's like, Aaron, I'm a cash. DJ coming down there, right? And along the way in the community, now that's the privilege of me being here so long, that along the way, I know neighbors. I say, BJ's coming, shoot a text, right? He has that privilege. I have that privilege, and that's not the privilege for everybody. But what I share with the young people is, if we're not preparing you to navigate a cold, mean, evil world and giving you the skill set to be successful in that world, then we are failing you. And I said to them, the only way that I can protect you as a council member is by giving you the resources, the exposures, and the access to opportunities and the resources to be successful in your environment when you left alone and there's no adult there.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to, I know we've been well over time, and I thank you for your time, but I do want to ask and say this. What, if there's someone that didn't know you before now, what do they need to know about you so that they know you have their best interest and what you would do with their vote?
Well, I care. And I think my faith, I think I might be the only candidate that leads with faith. I put that out there very early on, that I believe that we have an obligation as Christians, as right Christians, not these, Trump Christians. We have the right to do what Jesus tells us to do, and that's to take care of our neighbor. I told somebody the other day, I said, there are two titles that are more important, more impactful, more powerful in the Bible. That's the title of friend, and that's the title of neighbor. And those are the two most important titles. And as a council member, you get this community man that is passionate, that is embodied in me, that has everybody's best aspirations, hopes, and dreams and wishes. Right? It's inside of me. It's a part of my DNA, but you also get a politically savvy leader who understands legislation, who understands operation, who understands government and processes. You get someone that knows how to do the work from day one, who cares about you and cares about community. And the one thing that I get to boast about, and I'm thankful, that I have a character. I have a track record. Right? You know what I will and will not do. You know what I'm capable of. I have lived publicly. I have shared so much of my struggles, so much of my failures, so much of my successes over the last 20 years by living publicly, like I'm supposed to do as a Christian. And I'll put this, and I'll blame you, Reverend Curry. If anybody has a problem with me, Reverend Curry told me that if I was going to give my faith, if I was going to give my life to Christ, I had to do it publicly. And I tried to do a private baptism, and he made me invite my family and friends. I think 100 people showed up to that baptism. And that sermon was, it's an inside job.
That's it.
And for all these years, I have lived openly and publicly with my demons and with my failures and with my struggles. And I've worked on those things. So if I can change, if I can grow, if I can move forward, I can do it with the power, authority, and influence of the council seat, because that's what we need. That's what we're missing. We're missing the opportunity to grow and thrive. We're stagnant, and we've been stagnant. We have moments of growth, we have moments of forward progress, and then we take 2-3 steps back for one reason or another. But I am capable of taking this job, putting this work on my shoulder, and moving us forward 4 years at a time. And I can do that better than anybody else in this race.
All right, sir.
Everybody, that's Villareal VJ Johnson, your next Ward 7 council member. We appreciate all of what he shared with us, his insight, his passion, his honesty, his transparency. He has been inspirational. He's been transformational. And we certainly appreciate all of what he has done over the past 2 decades here, serving the needs and the interests of the residents of Ward 7, as well as we are excited about what is to come in the future. Reverend Dr. Kendrick Curry, Pastor, thank you so much. Only you could have asked and brought an insight here about the status of Ward 7 and its future, and your questions really honed us in, focused us in on what is really important and what really matters to the residents and our lives here as residents here in Ward 7. I want to thank you both, gentlemen, for your time tonight and for coming out. Before I take the last word, Reverend Curry, I'll let you have your last word.
All I will say is, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord has his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance, that is his face, and give you peace. We bless that on all of on the viewers. We bless that over Villareal as well as you, Brother Bolin.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
Brother Johnson, go ahead.
Let me put a call out there, because here's the struggle for us, the struggle for me. And I think I got the best team in the game. I know there's some government financing that's propelling some of these candidates forward that in traditional situations wouldn't have made it this far. But I have a core team of 12 folks that go hard in the paint. And, they're doing it out of the love for Ward 7. They're doing it out of the love for service. They're doing it out of the love of their faith and belief in Jesus Christ, because they believe that we can, and we can. And one of the things that I must compel everybody to do is to go out and tell your neighbors that VJ is the person that is good for right now. We have a great bench. We're going to have a talented group of future leaders. But for this transitory period right now, where we set the stage from our baby boomers to our millennials, I'm here for that transitory position and status to move us forward in the right way, because unfortunately, we could lose really, really bad if we don't make this work the way that it's supposed to work.
Excellent. Well, everybody, again, I'm Anthony Bolin, and this has been another episode of Chasing Gazillions. Ain't the same as making millions. Anthony Bolin Group here, providing you with real estate services, whether you're looking to buy a house, sell a house, commercial leasing, sales, land, churches, underutilized resources at your church. We're here to provide those services. But most importantly, we bring you this program to bring you information and people who are going to help you change and improve your life here in DMV, and particularly here in Ward 7. So I want to thank you for coming out. Thank you for all the people who came in, who looked, who chatted. We certainly appreciate all of that and want to wish you all the very best going forward. All the best. Take care. Bye.
Peace.